Welcome to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast, your guide to future tech trends and innovation in a language you understand. Now, over to your host, Neil Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast, where I try to share inspirational startup stories, people making a difference in the tech industry, and covering all the latest tech trends and how they're transforming businesses of tomorrow, today. And I try and do that on a daily basis. Unless I burn out, of course. But today's guest is the perfect fit for this show. His name's Edrizio De La Cruz, and he's the CEO and co-founder of Arcus. And Arcus is a FinTech startup working to create a better financial health for individual people and the financial institutions by simply using technology to build a more seamless, secure, and enjoyable finance experience. Not only that, he also has a wonderfully inspirational story that took him from the Caribbean to the South Bronx at age just 11, and he immediately started working, but quickly became frustrated that he couldn't better help his parents make ends meet and help them manage their finances. However, with Wall Street just being a stone's throw away, this fueled him with endless dreams. So if, like me, you're a fan of technology and also a bit of a dreamer, today's episode is pure gold. So buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to New York so we can speak with Edrizio De La Cruz, CEO and co-founder of Arcus. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Hi Neil, really excited to be on the show and your podcast today. I'm a big fan. My name is Edrizio De La Cruz. I am the co-founder of Arcus. We are a B2B fintech company based in New York City.
Arcus is a fintech startup working to create a better financial health for individual people and the financial institutions by using technology to build a more seamless, secure and enjoyable finance experience. But can you just set the scene and help the listeners visualise exactly what kind of problems that you set out to solve with technology?
Absolutely, Neil. Here's what we see. 2/3 of Americans, around 68% of them, struggle to make ends meet. That basically means they struggle to pay their bills on time, such as their credit card bills, their student loans, utility bills, cell phone bills. It's really hard to keep track of an average about 10 to 12 bills per month, where they are, how much you owe, are they paid on time or not. And as a result, a lot of them fall into further debt, which impacts their credit score today, which impacts their ability to get a house or a mortgage tomorrow. So it creates this kind of vicious cycle. We believe by providing technology to our clients, which are banks and fintech companies, that they can help their consumers have better transparency and automate a lot of these problems that otherwise are pretty prevalent in Americans' life.
Now, we're all shaped by our upbringing, but you have a particularly inspirational story that was responsible for helping you actually create this vision to democratize access to innovative financial services, but for everyone. So can you tell me more about your story that began when I think you left the Caribbean and headed to the South Bronx at age just 11? Because I think it's a fantastic story.
Absolutely. I came here when I was 11, moved to the South Bronx with my mother, started living with my father for the first time, moved around a lot afterwards. Thereafter, I really wanted to leave the area to go to school. So I would commute every day from Manhattan to Queens. I attended Aviation High School, which is a vocational school focused on allowing kids to become airplane mechanics. I became fascinated with aviation, so fascinated that I wanted to be a pilot. So after high school, I joined the Air Force Reserve, which I quickly left after because I learned that I couldn't be a fighter pilot if I didn't have 20/20 vision. So shortly after I became an airplane mechanic, I did that for a couple of years, trying to help my parents make ends meet, manage their finances in order to leave where we were, which was a rather not very safe neighborhood, to say the least, where we lived in Uptown Manhattan. And I think that experience of having to help my parents make ends meet, it's really what shaped and molded molded the catalyst behind building Arcus.
From the outside looking in as well, it seems that your journey instilled that innate sense of purpose and vision to democratize access to better financial services for everyone. So in 2013, your vision sparked the launch of Arcus in Silicon Valley's Y-Combinator. But can you talk me through that launch and how the project then began to take shape?
Certainly. I had just finished business school at the Wharton School, and I wanted to do something that was going to be very impactful. I didn't want to have just economic impact, but I wanted to have a personal aspect to it, because I knew that this was going to be something that was going to be fully invested. So I started thinking through ideas about my personal experience and how can I build technology that's going to help people better manage their family's finances. So the first iteration of Arcus, then called Regali, was around cross-border bill pay, not domestic bill pay, but cross-border bill pay. Basically, if I'm here and I have family back home in the Dominican Republic or Mexico, how can I pay their bills? How can I pay their credit card? How can I pay their loans? So we built that business in 2013, and then later evolved it to be domestic in 2016.
So Arcus went on to be built on resilient spirit and a bold vision. Do you think it's your journey and your endurance and innovation that gave Arcus that real beating heart and soul?
I think it certainly was. I think I'm very fortunate to travel the path that I travel. I think I see it more as an advantage than a weakness. I think all growth requires pain, right? Whether you are growing a business or you're growing a muscle or you're growing a relationship, there's an inherent painful process. And what I say is that it's always darkest before dawn, right? It's always most painful right before you make that breakthrough. And I was fortunate enough to be an adult at age 12, right? Yeah. Because the circumstances that I was put on. But those circumstances kind of compounded a degree of perspective and knowledge that instilled into who we are today as an organization. So overall, very fortunate to have that experience.
And like you said a few moments ago, today 68% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck, and I would imagine that stat is very similar all over the world. However, most FinTech platforms focus on wealth management, so it does feel that many areas of society are being completely neglected. So can you tell me more about your mission to become that two-way protocol that financial institutions use to improve the financial lives of all people, not just the well-off there? And maybe offer a scenario that can help listeners visualize how you're going to solve this very real problem.
Yeah, I can first paint the problem and then a use case behind the problem.
Yeah.
So the problem is, you hit the nail on the head, that most FinTech is around wealth management. So there's two sides to a balance sheet. It's an asset side and a liability side. So you as an individual, you have your stocks, your bonds, your mutual funds somewhere, and those are your assets, your 401k, those are your assets. And there's a liability side, that things that you basically owe. So you owe credit card bills, you owe a loan, you owe your mortgage, you owe your utility bills every month. This comes due every month. It's inescapable, is uncommon, right? However, a lion's share of the capital in venture capital has gone towards the former, not the latter, towards the asset side, not the former side. And it is the former side that most Americans care about, right? They don't care about how much they have in their 401k or stocks. Most Americans are really struggling, living paycheck to paycheck, being fed kind of hand to mouth. And what they care about is, can I make ends meet? Can I pay off my credit card next month? Can I pay my bills next month? Can I pay my cell phone bills next month? Can my mother afford her cell phone bills next month? Answer to those questions are very hard to come by given the financial infrastructure that there is today. If an average person was to ask those questions to their bank today, their bank couldn't answer them. The bank couldn't tell them, yes, Neil, you have enough money to pay off all your bills next month. Or no, you don't have enough money. Or this is how much you need. That basic question cannot be answered today. And that is the question that our technology provides. So to give you an example, our technology provides the data behind your utility bill, your cell phone bill, your cable bill, your credit card bill, your loans, we consolidate that data, and we show it inside of your bank or your FinTech app or whatever you manage your money. So we think more data leads to more transparency leads to a degree of financial literacy that's very much needed for the 68% of Americans we cite here.
And another great aspect to your story that will be valuable to many tech startup founders that I suspect are listening is the art of knowing when to pivot. So can you tell me more about how you originally built technology to help immigrants pay bills back home, but then made the decision to pivot and help banks reissue credit and debit cards to customers whose cards have been lost, stolen, or even breached?
Yes, certainly. So when we started the business, as I mentioned before, we started cross-border bill pay. Yeah. And what we've learned is that two things. The domestic bill pay market was much, much larger. But the second thing we learned is that we could use the bill pay infrastructure that we built in order to do other products. So initially we started US to Mexico. And in doing so, we built a really brand new, robust infrastructure in Mexico to do bill pay. Because before us, like I mentioned before, you had no data behind bill pay. So we had to do that in Mexico, and the second thing we did is we did it domestically. So instead of doing only cross-border, we did it domestically, and we learned, well, there's more Mexicans in Mexico than there's Mexicans in the United States, so it's a much bigger market. And the third thing we learned is, well, the same issues that exist in Mexico from a financial infrastructure perspective exist in the United States, which is a much bigger market. So the third thing we did was imported that technology into the U.S., and that's where we are today. We've imported technology into the U.S. for the past year. We've grown aggressively in the U.S. the past year. And we're now working with a number of fintechs. And soon we'll be working with some of the largest banks in the United States to provide this type of financial help.
I'm glad you mentioned partners there. I mean, can you tell me more about how you've partnered with some of the world's leading investors, financial organisations, and social impact organisations too, all with that aim of creating a global community that's revolutionising the world of consumer finance?
Certainly. In terms of partnerships, we just announced a partnership with Happy Money. Again, another great use case. Happy Money is a lender. People go to Happy Money to get personal loans anywhere from $5,000 to $25,000 to $30,000. And what we are enabling Happy Money to do, or their consumers to do, is to be able to take one of those loans and pay off all credit cards in a single swoop. Before, they will have to send the loan to the consumer's bank account. The consumer then will have to go and pay off one card one by one and not really know what's a better deal, what's the interest rate in one versus another. So we allow payments, but we also allow data. We can tell that consumer, hey, your blended APR rate for your Chase card, your Macy's card, and your JetBlue card is 14.7%. And Happy Money is giving you a 12% APR. So it makes sense, right?
Yeah.
So it goes back to the theme of data and transparency and automation. If you make it really easy for people to make smarter decisions, I think it kicks a positive, virtuous cycle, which ultimately can get them out of poverty, right? Because then you are not falling into debt every month. If you're not falling into debt every month, you can focus more on other things, right? And I think overall, that's kind of my vision, is how to use data and technology to kickstart that virtuous cycle.
And it really is a fantastic thing that you're doing there. And you've been on an incredible journey already. But if we were to look towards the future, I mean, what's next for Arcus? Can you tell me a little bit more about where you are now and where you're heading and what your roadmap looks like for the next 2 years?
Absolutely. I think there's two aspects. There's the vertical aspect and the horizontal aspect. Vertically, we want to keep building features on top of our products for our existing clients, meaning we want to be able to be a source of data for our clients. We think there's a lot of value behind providing our clients alternative ways to measure and evaluate creditworthiness. Because, as you know, 1/6 of Americans have thin credit files. They don't have enough information to be judged by the credit scoring system, which have been around since the 70s and haven't really updated the way that they do credit scoring at all. So we believe if you can tell how well a person pays a bill on time, that's a proxy. That's a good proxy that should be weighed for or against a consumer's credit evaluation. So that's one way we want to evolve in the next few years. The second way is just expand geographically. Canada, I think, is a great market, and south of the border, South America and Brazil, it's another great markets. We want to be a global player, not just a regional player.
So if we do have anyone listening today that you've really struck a chord with and what you've said today has resonated with them, can you just point the listeners in the direction of where they can find you online and maybe even reach out to a member of your team if they have any questions?
Absolutely. Our website is arcusfi.com, arcusfi.com, and my email is edrizio@arcusfi.com.
Fantastic. Well, like I said at the beginning of the show, I think we're all shaped and moulded by our own experiences. But what I love about your story there is, although you have had a sense of struggle, but that struggle has actually given you a sense of purpose and a vision to democratize access to better financial services for everyone. And that's a beautiful thing. And how you're using technology is fantastic too. So a big thank you for coming on and sharing your story today.
Thank you, Neil. Appreciate it.
Inspirational, brilliant, passionate, awesome, an all-round good guy. They're just a few words that spring to mind on how I would describe today's guest. And each and every person listening to me now has their own personal story, and they're shaped by their experiences too, in the same way as Edrizio. But when life shapes us and moulds us, it's what we do with those experiences. And that's what I find fascinating. I mean, sure, it's tempting to sit around sometimes feeling sorry for ourselves, but I love how today's guest and his journey instilled that innate sense of purpose and vision to democratise access to better financial services, not just for himself, for everyone moving forward. And I think it's a beautiful story, and one that I hope inspires you too, especially if you're listening here in August 2018, but equally if you stumble across this episode in a few years from now. That is why I record this show. I mean, the ability to learn and be inspired by others' stories is a tremendously powerful thing. And I also love the tech aspect of this business. And I think there was also a valuable lesson in there for tech startup founders listening about actually knowing when to pivot. But hey, that's just me. That's what I took away from today's episode. What did you take away? And as always, I leave my door open. Tweet me at Neil C. Hughes. Email me at techblogwriter@outlook.com. But I've taken up far too much of your time today, and indeed this week, possibly this month, and most definitely this year. So I really appreciate you taking the time to tune in and have me drone on in your earballs each day. I really appreciate it. And I hope you'll join me in doing it all again tomorrow. So thanks for listening, and until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thanks for listening to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. Until next time, remember, technology is best when it brings people together.